we are obviously going to carve out a ton of time for this Oregon-Penn State game. And honestly, not just because it's a local angle, but because this game was amazing.
Dude.
From start to finish. I think it was funny. To back up, I had this conversation with the brand man Dusty, and I was curious. I was like, why do Notre Dame games look so great on TV? Like, they just have this kind of shade, this tint that looks really good. And he was like, well, a lot of it is because those cameras are stationary and they don't move. They don't have to set up every time. I actually, after watching this game on NBC, think it might be an NBC thing. For some reason, the way their cameras are built, the way things are set up, it really encapsulates the moment. You felt like you were there at State College.
There was definitely part of me, like, it got to like 4:45, and normally I'd be like, can we get this kicked off? But
totally.
They had such a good, like, NBC in college and NFL, it's the best production in football, full stop.
We had Noah Eagle on the show last week, and then you add him and Todd Blackledge. I thought they were awesome on the call.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it is A+ broadcast. It was like watching a movie. I mean, in the Ducks post-game show, I had Anthony Newman on, and I just told him, I was like, dude, like, outside of the obvious, Duck fan reasons how great this game was, as a football fan, like, if you didn't have a rooting interest, this was just football in its purest form. Great entertainment, pads popping, big plays back and forth. As soon as you think the game's over, the other team comes back. You get double overtime in one of the best environments of college football. It was just pure nirvana for 4.5 hours.
I know.
Like.
I think one of the only downsides is that Bama Georgia was on at the same time.
I don't
because I want those yahoos in the South where it just means more to be able to take a look at a Big Ten environment or an ACC environment.
Like, this means a lot too.
Whoa, what they do over there is pretty rad too. Maybe we should, buckle up our haunches and go play Penn State in a night game. Maybe we should do that because the spectacle was fantastic. I thought the fan interaction was not what I expected. Drew Aller taking boos all night, fire Franklin at halftime.
Did you see that offense?
Oh, I know, and we'll get into how the game was, but like the environment was even more than I expected it to be. You expected it to be huge, but as I'm watching Penn State, Oregon on one TV, and I'm watching Georgia and Bama on another, I didn't think Athens had nearly the juice that was running in Pennsylvania.
I mean, I was totally checked out of that Bama Georgia game. I ended up having to catch highlights and read the rest of it afterwards. I saw the pregame. I mean, the pregame pageantry of that was pretty badass too. I mean, they had fireworks and how Georgia does the lights on, lights off, give you an epileptic seizure basically during the game. It was there, but obviously geographic and rooting interest reasons over here, it was just the Penn State game, Oregon won. It was the marquee matchup. It was one that it was getting hyped up on NBC all week. They were talking about it on Sunday Night Football the week before. That was the main event of the night, plain and simple.
Yeah, and I think one thing that went really, really well, too, was Oregon had some false starts that were caused by the crowd.
However, I think it was there was maybe a couple, one or two.
I think it was the
most.
third. I think it was the third quarter where I saw one. It was like, ooh, that's a crowd thing. But what I was super, super impressed, and I talked about this on Friday, was you better not have communication issues. You know what you're walking into. You know what you're going to see. You have to prep for it. And watching the first quarter, seeing I made this joke that the offensive line was going to learn ASL going into this game.
Oh,
did you see them tapping dudes?
Looking back,
just, like. The right guard would tap the center. The center's directing traffic for the entire offensive line using hand signs.
Yeah.
And then the right guard would tap him on the leg saying Dante's ready.
Yeah.
I thought that was absolutely brilliant. It's what you have to do walking into an environment like that. Just being prepped.
Yeah, it was, and it's just what makes this win for Oregon even more impressive when you have a quarterback who is still very new, not just in the system, but just playing quarterback at a high level and at an important level. I mean, yeah, he had some starts at UCLA, but we saw how that went. I mean, like, this was his first true road test, and you got thrown to the wolves. And then not only that, but you have freshman running backs, you have freshman wide receivers, you have an offensive line unit going into this year with they're 3 transfers on that offensive line.
Going up against the best defensive player in the nation, not named Caleb Downs.
It's just, to be that prepared for that environment, obviously that goes to the players, but more so goes to coaching. You had that team ready for that moment, and they delivered. It was that was one of the most impressive parts of that game.
And really the only time that Oregon lost their cool was that unnecessary roughness.
So, yep, second guy gets caught.
Yep. Alex Harkey had that unnecessary roughness, and that changed the game. But outside of that, discipline-wise, we'll have Tyson Alger on Wednesday, as we always do at 10:30, and we'll, get his thoughts, and we'll look forward a little bit to the Indiana game, but more to the bye. So I'll ask him this question. But that's one of those moments. This team was so well disciplined in this game, I thought. You miss a field goal, okay, that's not the end of the world for me. That, as we watch in college football and in the NFL, it's kind of a plague going around right now. But outside of that unnecessary roughness call, which did let Penn State back in the game, I thought the confidence, the poise, understanding the situation was huge. We spent all week on all three shows, and I didn't catch as much primetime last week as I normally do, so I don't know if they necessarily got into it, but I had forgotten because the TV would not let me forget that Dante Moore struggled in his starts at UCLA, and he got benched, and that was kind of their big thing. Sometimes you watch national media, and it's like, oh, do you watch what's going on the West Coast? Sometimes we ask that question. It's almost like you mail it in because it's, we play so late, and I don't want to stay up that late, blah, 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 your East Coast bias. But I'd forgotten that stuff, and it was easy to forget it as you kept watching the team play because they were disciplined. There were no issues whatsoever.
No, and we're gonna get into it. I believe the next segment, but so I don't want to go too far into it. But who's the leader on the team, man? It's always the quarterback. You look at your quarterback, steady hand. I mean, there was moments in maybe it was the third or fourth quarter where Drew Aller looked like he was about to pass out and die right there on the field.
Agreed, dude.
His BPMs, if he had a Fitbit, Apple Watch, or something in there, that was right. His heart was beating out of his chest. It was when they kind of they had that phantom timeout where they called timeout and a stoppage for some reason, and it was like, did Penn State call timeout? No, they didn't. But why are they stopping the game?
That was a really weird moment.
It was when I saw it, I was like, all right, I'm glad that you just gave Drew Aller time to catch his breath because he's looks like he's about to die out there.
Well, to your point on that, he was really discombobulated, and I think he was going huddle.
Yeah.
He was putting his hands together to huddle, but he was going so fast erratically that I think the refs thought he was calling timeout.
Yeah.
But he's actually if you're watching on YouTube, you can see my hands. That's what he looked like.
Dude,
it's like
he was out of control.
We laugh about Brandon Marsh, the outfielder for the Phillies, how his stringy long hair is always soaking wet, and he just looks like a greasy mess. That was Drew Aller. You could see his hair coming out the bottom of his helmet, and it was a sweatshop under there.
And then just how he was calling plays, it was almost like he was just yelling them all right, trips, right, X, Y slot. Ah!
It was like Gus Johnson on the Big Nooner when he's like, somebody get the ball, the ball's lost, somebody get the ball.
And to his credit, they led the comeback, but the whole entire game, and I said this in the post-game show, I was like, I don't know what sort of meditations they're doing in the quarterback room at Oregon, because you've seen it now with essentially 4 or 5 quarterbacks in a row with Dante, Dylan, Bo Nix, Justin Herbert,
Marcus.
Those guys are as cool as a cucumber the entire time. And whenever it shows them pre-snap, they're just kind of looking around, taking in. All right, looks like they're running man. Okay, there's a mic. 55's a mic right there. Okay, well, let's go score a touchdown. All right, let's convert this third down. It just seems like that every quarterback they've had for damn near a decade or longer is just so poised. And again, I'd just love to know what is the secret sauce down there that they're able to get those guys so locked in and focused year after year.
503-864-6326. This coming in. My 31-24 prediction Friday didn't include OT, but the Aller late INT kryptonite was a lock.
Dude,
I think that's to your point, Joe, and I do want to get into Dante Moore here next. To your point, the entire time I'm being told Dante Moore doesn't have the experience. Look at what happened at UCLA. He got benched, et cetera, et cetera. I always thought Dante was going to be cool and calm. I didn't think the difference between Dante and Drew Aller was going to be that big. And that's honestly a little more of a testament to Drew Aller. We were worried about him not being great in this game, and he was worried about not being good in this game.
Well, we looked up on Sports Saturday what some of his biggest games were, and in his career, and he had a big game against Kent State a couple years ago, and then the season opener against West Virginia 2 years ago. And then he had a couple others where he threw for over 290. But every other game, and I'm not even kidding, he has like 4 games where he's thrown over 290 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Every other game is less than 240 yards. Like it is.
What are you, JJ McCarthy?
Dude, it is just like insane. And, you know, going after the both teams started off 4-0 for the season, it was just like, you know, from what I've seen from Dante Moore to start this year and what I've seen from Drew Aller, like, I'm rolling with Dante. I know I'm biased. Like, let's not, you know, get it twisted. Like, yeah, very biased over here. Oregon alum, Oregon fan. I get it. But I think everybody, whether it's here locally or around the nation, there is a thing with Drew Aller where people are like, yeah, you're okay, but are you going to get it done? Are you going to actually show up? And me, and I feel like you and everybody who was watching that game felt that he got extremely lucky on a lot of different places.
I mean, that dime touchdown he threw was nice.
That was nice. I will give
You're
him
like,
that.
oh, there's the quarterback.
But he had one play in like the first or second quarter where he damn near slipped in the pocket and then he just threw it up and it got caught for a first down, 15 yards. And it was like, all right, he can't keep getting away with this. And, yeah, again, I think that pick, everybody knew it was going to happen at some point.
It's what separates the elite quarterbacks from the very good quarterbacks. It's, do you throw that pick in time crunch?